Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. Up first here, yesterday's satellite imagery showing lots of clouds here across southern Alaska associated with a front farther to the south here. Right about in that area, low pressure south of the Kodiak Island zone. A break, pretty good clearing there over the southwest interior into the southern Kuskokwim Valley, as well as the Seward Peninsula on up in toward the Noatak Valley. Seeing a fair amount of sunshine, otherwise more clouds, eastern North Slope and Arctic coast. And another system pushing eastward here across the southern Bering with a front heading from the Adak area early in toward Nikolsky in the afternoon. On today's imagery, that system now gone, and another one here southwest of the Panhandle spinning a front with clouds and rain on up into the southern southeast coast. Light rain, nothing too terribly heavy, 24-hour rainfall amount of about 1/3 of an inch at Heidelberg, with lesser amounts on up to the north. Sunshine, south central Alaska, Prince William Sound area, back into Bristol Bay. Some cumulus building here over the mountains along the western Alaska range, and a disturbance dropping southeastward dropping southeastward there from the Arctic, bringing thunderstorms here from about the central Tanana Valley eastward toward the border there and into the Yukon, with some scattered showers back along the western edge of that trough, with cooler, higher pressure following in behind there up along the Arctic coast. And then the next system here to the northwest, already spreading some light rain, fog, and drizzle into the western Arctic coast from about, say, Wainwright roughly on down to Cape Lisburne, Point Hope area, locally inland, but mostly sunny here over the southwest interior. Some pretty good showers developing over the Kilbrook Mountains this afternoon, and also the western Alaska Range area, but sunshine to the east and southeast of that, to a, looks like a mostly cloudy but dry day there for Kodiak Island. More sunshine here, the Alaska Peninsula, maybe the eastern Aleutians as well, otherwise the Bering Sea. High pressure dominating the weather out there, so low IFR much of the day there for the Pribilof Islands, with low conditions extending northward but not quite as widespread and as low as you get up towards St. Lawrence Island, but lots of low clouds and fog, and then even some drizzle, light rain and fog with that trough there near the western Aleutian areas. And looking at the forecast for tonight, this front edges northward here, so periods of rain continue. Heaviest amounts over the southern southeast coast, and then really not getting too much farther to the north there from roughly about Elfin Cove eastward. Just a chance moving into the Juneau area, but Haines, Skagway on up the Klondike Highway will remain dry with maybe some clearing, but mostly cloudy here for the North Gulf Coast into Prince William Sound, southern Cook Inlet, mostly cloudy Kodiak Island. Otherwise, this trough weakens and drops southeastward. Still a risk of some thunderstorms throughout the evening here for the eastern Alaska Range, possibly down into the Wrangell Mountains there on the north side. Otherwise, becoming mostly clear. Light winds up through the central interior. That next front moving eastward pretty rapidly there, along with some pretty gusty winds, 15 to 35 miles an hour here as that front races eastward along the central Arctic coast. About this position around 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, and that'll be pulling eastward in the afternoon. Otherwise, westerly flow around this big area, high pressure, just near or south of the central Aleutian, so widespread low clouds, fog, drizzle, light rain moving in and along the coast and inland here tonight. Not making too much of an eastward penetration inland there. You can see the gradient kind of cuts off there near the coastline, but definitely socked in along the coast with lower conditions getting a fair distance into the interior, maybe Bethel, and that's about it. Mostly cloudy, low clouds and fog, coastal areas of the Seward Peninsula, and that same pattern exists all the way out to the far western Aleutians, as well as the western Bering Sea. And let's see, moving on to forecast, first day of the weekend. Tomorrow, Saturday, that front dissipates, moves in, but a couple of troughs here keep it wet. Occasional rain showers, pretty widespread. Mostly, again, the central and southern southeast coast, but chance of showers all the way to the north there into maybe northern Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay area, but staying dry. Mostly sunny here, Yakutat, North Gulf Coast, looking pretty good. Sunny and warm conditions. Temperatures rising into the 70s to maybe lower 80s in the Susitna Valley tomorrow. Same thing up north of the mountains as well. Should be drier than what you saw today with this front weakening, sagging southward. Some of that precipitation may get south of the Brooks Range into the Noatak Valley, cutting across the northern Kobuk, northern Koyukuk Valley, and then even losing the clouds quite rapidly south of there. Drier conditions on the north side of the front with lighter winds, kind of an area high pressure back through here, as weak as it is, with the main low pressure area pulling off to the northeast there. So initially seeing some gusty winds early in the day there out of the west or southwest, but those will be diminishing throughout the afternoon here from west to east. Tomorrow afternoon, especially this time, looking quite light. The next system back here to the west, though, poised to move in. Otherwise, west-southwest flow here for the Bering Sea keeps all that low clouds and fog locked in the area there right up to the coastline. Some of that spreading into the Norton Sound area. Pretty good chance of seeing some drizzle or very light rain. Definitely IFR conditions there for the southern side of the Seward Peninsula from Golovin, Nome, all the way around to Tin City. Possible clearing maybe for the St. Lawrence Island area, but I wouldn't count on it. And lots of low clouds and fog again down to the Pribilofs. Even the central Aleutians could be socked in there, Adak and Atka, and the north side of the Alaska Peninsula here. But offshore flow could make for a VFR day for Sand Point and the southern sides of the Unalaska Island zone. And for the outlook for Sunday, that system pulls eastward here. Really good shot of rain with us coming in to the northwest interior here. The warm front bringing rain all across the southern slopes of the Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast and to the west. And then that precipitation band narrows as you head southwest, but looks pretty wet for the Yukon Delta. Clouds, chance of rain, Kuskokwim Delta late in the day. That'll eventually probably move in for the evening hours on Sunday. Rain and fog, Pribilofs back to the western Aleutians. Otherwise, east of the Alaska Range, another sunny, warm day, maybe a few showers developing there around Denali. That's about it. Thunderstorm activity, if the moisture is available, will develop in this area here from the Wrangell Mountains, right along the eastern border up to about Eagle. And that's only if there's enough moisture to kick those off and support them. Otherwise, it'll be a thunderstorm-free day. Isolated showers over the northern Panhandle. Otherwise, I'll call it mostly cloudy or partly sunny there. Morning low clouds, fog, especially along the coast. And then again, IFR with this system basically back to the west there. A little bit of an offshore flow may keep it marginal to just areas of IFR in the eastern Arctic coast, but lots of moisture with that. So expect some pretty low flying conditions. On the temperatures today, 80 degrees, warm spot at least at 4 p.m. there at Kaliganik. Otherwise, cool lake breeze there kept Iliamna at 69, but up to 76 at King Salmon, 59 Kodiak. South central Alaska, upper 50s, mostly in the 60s there, except for Portage at 59, 69 in Palmer, 66 Talkeetna, 60 degrees there at Kenai, and a 63 both at Seward and Homer, at 61 at Cordova. Lower 70s, Copper River Basin, Golcano with 71, 60s across the Panhandle, except down south. More rain there, keeping it in the mid-50s at the Craig-Klawak area. North of the mountains there, 71 at Fairbanks, 73 at Tanana, and McGrath up to 76. Farther north, we had mid-60s there for the upper Yukon Valley, back toward Bettles. Lower to mid-50s for the Brooks Range and the eastern, or the Anatuvik area, and the Arctic Village, seeing about 57. 40s along the coastline there for the Arctic coast, especially the east side, but just 39 degrees at Kaktovik. Otherwise up to 60. Cape Lisburne, upper 50s there, 57 at Kivalina, and 62 degree reading at Kotzebue, as well as Nome, and 70s here all the way down the Kuskokwim River Valley into Bethel, and near 70 out along the Yukon Delta coast. That's Monik at 69, Unalakleet 67, 54 at Makoriak. Pribilofs lower 50s today with all the low clouds and fog. 54 in Atka, 48 Adak, and a 46 degree reading at Shemya with the Eastern Aleutians, 50 degrees on Alaska, 53 there for Cold Bay, and 63 for Sand Point. Lows tonight, mid-50s here from the southwest coast right up into the west central interior. Cooling into the upper 40s over toward, or the lower 40s toward Eagle, upper 30s central eastern Arctic coast, 40s, upper 40s to mid-50s south central Alaska, as well as the panhandle there. 40s and mostly in the 40s actually for the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. Highs tomorrow, 70s right down to the coastline again here for Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim Delta. Mid-70s to near 80 from Nicolai and McGrath, in across the Tanana Valley areas, western areas, and then a little cooler as you head east, but still into the 70s. Susitna Valley could reach 80 degrees, places like the greater Trapper Creek area, 60s to 70s, Kenai Peninsula, and the Panhandle upper 50s to the lower 60s. And for the flying weather tomorrow, some pretty good VFR there from the north slope southward into the Gulf of Alaska. Marginal VFR, that moisture over the southern southeast coast, and lots of IFR along the Arctic coast, through the Bering Strait, in toward Norton Sound, southward along and offshore there through the Pribilofs down to the eastern Aleutians and the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. Marginal through the central Aleutians, more IFR out to the west. So by tomorrow afternoon, that looks something like this. Still widespread IFR out over the Bering Sea area, with IFR from the Bering Strait actually southward across St. Lawrence Island, down along the coastline here, Nunivak Island, back to the southwest. Another IFR day for the Pribilofs once again. Mars a little bit better here for the central Aleutians to the Fox Islands there, but a big patch of IFR north side of the Alaska Peninsula. VFR south side though to Kodiak Island. Marginal VFR just east of the island, across all of the Gulf of Alaska to the coast of the Panhandle. Enittuvik VFR, same forecast we're adding in as well, looking VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill. Good VFR conditions, rainy VFR, windy VFR as well. Isabel VFR, Mentasta VFR, chance of a thunderstorm though, maybe, just a risk. And for Tanita, looking good as well. Portage VFR, Chilcoot and White VFR becoming marginal as the moisture moves northward throughout the day. Freezing levels, coolest in the east here, but about 8,000 feet, and then gradually warming 12,000 feet, covering the Bering Sea here on the east side, to as high as 14,000 feet plus out to the west, with a big upper level ridge out in that area. Icing above about 6,000 feet with that eastward bound front right to about the Brooks Range area, and then with the moisture down here across the southeast coast, with the best chances over the central and southern coast down toward Dixon Entrance, less chance up to the north there. And for the jet stream, big upper level ridge I spoke of here over the southwest, southern Bering and southwest or western Aleutian areas ridging inland there. One jet over the top, 60 knots out of the east there, but that's going to allow that front to gradually sag southward, maybe south of the Brooks Range. And that's about it for tomorrow. Otherwise, the other jet here, the cold upper low there off the southeast coast or west of the Queen Charlottes, and the main flow to the south of that feature. 9,000 feet westerly flow, 25 to 40 knots early on there for the Arctic coast. They'll be passing west to east throughout later tonight and tomorrow, becoming light back to the west. And then some westerlies, 15 to 25 through the central interior. Light winds for the Aleutians, the Bering Sea, southwest 25 to 35 at 3,000 feet. Light here with a high center to the south. Westerlies 15 to 25 in a narrow band here through the central interior. And again, those diminishing wind conditions along the Arctic coast. And for turbulence, occasional light to isolated moderate chop here tomorrow. Brooks Range northward out to the coast, southwestward through the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island. And that's about it. And after the break, I'll be back to look at the ice edge and the marine forecasts.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. As you well know, you can get forecast information for any day of the week. Today, tonight, tomorrow, out to 6 or 7 days. It includes the high and low temperature, the wind direction, the chance of rain or snow in your part of Alaska. But did you know that there is information available to forecast out to 2 weeks? So the question is, how would you use that information? And here to answer that question today and tell us a lot more about climate services from the U.S. National Weather Service Alaska region is Rick Toman. He's the program manager for the Climate Science and Services. And Rick, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
How would we use information that is out to 2 weeks instead of just the high and low and the chance of rain?
Well, Dave, as we move out in time, of course, forecasts become more uncertain. So as we move into that second week from now, we're not looking at specific highs or lows or precipitation amounts at any given place. What we can do with the state of the science at this point is get a handle on patterns. So we can say things like increased chances for stormy weather in the Bering Sea in 2 weeks, or we've been in a cold weather pattern, looks like 8 to 10 days from now, that pattern's going to change. Those are the kind of forecasts that we can currently make in that second week.
So you're increasing lead time for perhaps big or small weather events and telling us the likelihood of maybe more coastal storms or wind events in some areas?
Those are the kinds of things that that we hope to be able to let Alaskans know in the second week forecast. And if you have an activity or an event that you would find that kind of advance notice useful, whether it's moving stuff off of the beach, whether to go out hunting or to come back from camp, those kind of decisions, the week 2 provides the opportunity for you to get a handle on that kind of information.
Okay. What other type of weather impacts that we're familiar with might Alaskans use climate services for?
Well, in the forecast realm, we can go provide some information from this week 2, say the 8 to 14 day period, on out to the monthly and even seasonal time scale. Now, those monthly seasonal forecasts are still kind of just really very much pattern dependent, and the amount of detail that we can provide at this point is still pretty limited. Generally, indications of how temperature and precipitation will fall in maybe above normal, below normal kind of range. But in the week 2 period, we can be considerably more specific than that as far as the general patterns and really the impacts on Alaskans.
Okay, so we would be talking about generalizations there that would tell us that the period might be more stormy, might be more hot, more dry, more cold, and situations like that.
That's correct. So we're not going to be able to say in which community, for instance, there's the threat of coastal flooding, but we can often be able to tell we're moving into a pattern that would be conducive to big Bering Sea storms. So if you're in an area that could potentially impact you, you'll want to pay attention to the weather forecast.
Okay. Now, every day and every hour of the day, the National Weather Service is working on a forecast for the next day. But how do you start your forecast process for that extended period that goes out beyond 7 days?
Well, the way things work right now, we start off with the expected general flow pattern for Alaska and the whole world, really, and then we narrow that down to Alaska. So we start off with the basic computer model forecast. There's quite a few different computer models that we look at, bring those together. And then another important part of that is we attempt to assess the confidence. The reality is often 2 weeks away, the computer models are very divergent. They have lots of different solutions, and that's an indication that we don't have much confidence. But when we see more agreement in that time frame, and when that agreement is a pattern that will be potentially very impactful for Alaska or is a big change from what we've been in, that's when we can then take that expected pattern. We have computer models forecasting it. We've assessed the confidence. Now we can move that forward. How, using our experience as Alaskan weather forecasters, how does that typically play out for Alaska? So is this a stormy pattern for the Bering Sea? Is this an extra rainy period for Southeast? Is this the kind of pattern that generates strong winds potentially in the Anchorage Bowl? Is this a deep cold pattern for the interior? All of those are the kind of things that we're looking at in these large-scale patterns. That's very different than telling you that the winds on 10 days from now are going to be gusting to 120 on the hillside. We're looking for patterns, not the very specific information that the Weather Service will then hone in on as the event gets closer.
So the idea is to keep the 5, 6, 7 day forecast the same, where you are getting the standard high and low temperature and the chance of wind or rain, but further out you get a broad general forecast, but as the time gets closer to that event, we'll get a lot more specific.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. So how can people use this information if I am out in the bush and I want to see, is a coastal storm expected in my region, or is a chance for that improving over the next 2 to 3 weeks? Where could I go to get information like that?
When we see that potentially impactful or a big change in the weather is coming 8 to 14 days out, typically we will start to highlight that on the Weather Service Facebook site. We might produce a YouTube video highlighting that, linking that on our Facebook site. So often we don't, at this point, we don't have much to say in that because we're really looking for those forecasts of opportunities. But one thing we can say very likely as we go through the next 2 or 3 years, there'll be more and more of this kind of forecast information available in that week 2 time frame.
Okay, and something that emergency managers and city planners and folks in villages might be interested in keeping an eye out for, looking for that information to be headlined, whether that's on social media or perhaps through the National Weather Service channels there to get information from you to make better plans a little bit longer term and make better preparations in the event that things become a little bit more unsettled.
Absolutely. Climate Services with the National Weather Service Alaska region is talking to the state of Alaska every week, apprising them of that 2-week outlook. And on the social media side, we are working to keep Alaskans informed so that when we think we have some confidence in a high impact or a big change, that's the best way right now for folks to find out about that. Twitter, Facebook, so stay tuned to your National Weather Service.
Very good, a developing program. Rick Thoman with the National Weather Service Alaska region. He's a Climate Science and Services Program Manager. Thanks so much for joining us again, Rick, and I hope to have you back again soon.
Great, thanks Dave.
For another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snider. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea ice analysis today. Still some ice here along and north of the Arctic coast, mostly north of the Barrier Islands. Of course, marine areas carrying seas all through this area. And with the westerly winds, the warmer by comparatively warmer ocean temperatures here, and the winds kind of getting back and forth over the next 3 to 5 days, expect this whole area to continue to slowly melt away. And for the marine forecast, south southerlies at 20 knots for the south coast with 8-foot seas, good for small craft advisories here on the southern coast, as well as up on the north coast. And then more variable, lighter 7-foot seas, so no small craft advisories, extreme north coast. Lynn Canal, northern Lynn Canal, south 20 in the afternoon, otherwise 15 for Stevens Passage. Back up to 20 from the south for Clarence Strait. Sunday's outlook, pretty light winds there out of the southeast, barely a breeze. South 10 for Stevens Passage. Small craft advisories now back in the forecast for Northern Canal. Otherwise, out here along the coast, 15-knot winds from the south-southeast there with 6 to 7-foot seas. So no small crafts at all in the forecast for the coast on Sunday. And for Prince William Sound tomorrow, light or variable to west at 10 knots. 15-knot winds, 6-foot seas from the North Gulf Coast back to the Barren Islands, turning southwest here for Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, Kachemak Bay, and Cook Inlet, variable at 10 with 2 to 3 foot seas. And then it looks like small craft advisories here for the northern Cook Inlet area, north of the Foreland South, coming up 25 knots, 7-foot seas. Actually, all of Cook Inlet, small craft advisories, 7 to 8-foot seas, falling back to 20 knots for Kachemak Bay. Southwest 15 Kodiak, and light variable winds from the North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound. Bristol Bay west 15 tomorrow, northwest 15 here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Otherwise from Kessel Cape to Sitkinak, it looks, or for Cape Sarachef to Sitkinak, variable winds at 10 with 5-foot seas. Those variable winds continue through Sunday there, again from Cape Sarachef to Sitkinak with west-southwest 15 knots on the Bering Sea side, as well as Bristol Bay. Aleutians, eastern Aleutians, variable to north at 10 to 15 with seas pretty slight, 3 to 5 feet. And light variable winds staying laid down here under high pressure for the central Aleutians. Otherwise southerlies, 15, increasing to 20 knots out here over the western zone. And then those turn southwest at 20. Now we've got southwesterlies, 15 to 20 knots in across the central Aleutians, but seas only at about 4 feet, but up to 7 feet. They're out towards Shimian at 2. And then we've got variable to southwest winds here. Southwest north side of the Fox Islands at 15, more variable to the south there at 10 to 15, seas running 3 to 4 feet. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, northwesterlies at 15, west 15, north of the island out to St. Matthew. Light variable winds to the Pribilof. Small craft advisory, St. Lawrence Island tomorrow, southwest 25. And then the next day, those pick up even more. That next system, stronger system entering the picture here with small craft advisories for the Pribilofs at 25 knots. South of Nunivak Island, 30 knot winds. North of Nunivak Island, turning south at 30 for St. Lawrence Island with higher gusts. And then for the Arctic coast, 30 knot winds tomorrow at some point in the day. But the trend will be for the strongest winds in the morning hours here. These winds will be lightening up in the afternoon down to possibly 15 knots and eventually east side there as well. Otherwise, lighter winds here from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, then south 25. And then on the next day, 25 knot winds here from Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson, 30 knots Cape Thompson down to the Bering Strait with 8-foot seas. Southerlies at 20 on the west side, east 20 for the central coast, and then southeast winds 15 to 20 for the eastern Beaufort Sea. And then for tonight, front moving fairly rapidly eastward there with rain and gusty winds for the Arctic coast, locally into the North Slope. That weakens as the main low pressure area pulls off to the northeast, leaving this weakening front there pretty much along the Brooks Range. But tomorrow, very sunny and warm here through the central interior, especially down in the Sitna Valley in the southwest once again. Lots of IFR and low clouds and fog for the Bering Sea. Still wet for the Panhandle, but less of that, much less of that on Sunday there. Mostly dry day, just a risk of some showers up to the north. Another sunny day, south central Alaska, eastern interior, rain and clouds coming in from the west-northwest. Have a great weekend.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.